So Therese is the Director of K12 Growth at Adobe, where she leads strategic initiatives to expand the use of Adobe Express in education. So that's her main focus. This has helped to drive a widespread adoption of Adobe Express across US schools predominantly. But of course, that connects to schools all over the world, empowering students to build digital creativity skills that enhance learning and prepare them for future careers, as we well know in this country. Therese is passionate about helping educators unlock the power of creativity in the classroom and is committed to ensuring Adobe Express remains relevant and impactful for the real world teaching and learning experiences. Therese, how long have you been with Adobe?
I've only been here 3 years, so I'm fairly new in Adobeverse, but it's been a really good ride so far.
I think I've met you twice, haven't I, in those 3 years? Yeah, which has been wonderful in San Francisco. Are you based in San Francisco or whereabouts?
No, I'm in Santa Barbara, about 5 hours south of San Francisco, but still on the California coast. Yep.
A beautiful part of the world, Santa Barbara. In fact, it's probably my favorite part of California is Santa Barbara. Just a stunning part of the world. And that's why Rob Lowe lives there. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually saw him one time running and I was like, how do I know that guy? I'm like, oh, it's Rob Lowe.
I was talking to Dr. Brian Johnsrud, who's actually instrumental in the research that you're going to be sharing today. He also lives in Santa Barbara, doesn't he?
Yes, yeah, yep. About a mile from me. So,
And I was introducing him at another keynote. I think it was this event last year, actually, from memory. And I just jokingly said that Rob Lowe lives in Santa Barbara. He goes, yes, I had dinner last night and he was in the table next to me.
Yeah, I know. It's like he's everywhere.
Pretty amazing. And if you don't know who Rob Lowe is, then you're obviously not as old as we are. Oh no, he's still on television today, isn't he? He's amazing. So look him up. But we're not talking about Rob Lowe. This particular keynote is all about some research that was done earlier this year that relates to K12. Now, is this, just to remind us, Therese, this isn't just Adobe doing this research. We actually partnered, didn't we, with a research organization?
That's right. Yep. We partnered with a couple of research organizations because, we needed to verify actually what we're putting out here. So, and I have a lot more information about all of that. So happy to share it.
Excellent. All right. I think we're good to go. So I'm going to hand it over to you and I'm going to disappear and just monitor the chat. Thanks, Therese.
Okay, great. Tim, can you see my screen okay?
Yep, looking good.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, thanks, you guys. As Tim said, I'm Therese Adams. I lead K12 Growth for Adobe Express. And I know Tim did that lovely introduction, but really over the past few years, I've grown a team that brings teacher feedback straight to our product teams. So Express keeps getting better for schools. And I'm especially excited to be connecting with Australian educators, Tim, because I spent a semester at Macquarie University during my undergrad years, and I have such fond memories of my time in Australia. So it's a real pleasure to reconnect with the Australian education community, even if it's virtually, and share how creativity can unlock student potential. And also I'm a mom to 2 school-age boys in years 6 and 7, so I'm also very well versed in tween slang and passionate about helping students find their voice. So let's start with a story. A typical student, but someone who rarely participates and never takes pride in his work, creates something different. A printed poster that is totally his own, his favorite colors, custom images, things he tried until he said, yeah, that is what I want, that's mine. And when he then saw it hanging in a school hallway, he drags a friend over and says, beaming with pride, hey, look, I made this. And when his teacher overhears that, she stops in her tracks. She told the researchers in the study I'm about to share, I don't think he's ever done that with schoolwork before. So this isn't just about a tool, this is about pride and student ownership and creative confidence. And as you'll see in this session, that student is not the exception. He's one of many who have this kind of experience if they're given the opportunity. What we're going to walk through today is a research study Adobe asked Lean Lab Education to conduct, asking what happens when we give students creative tools that are built for classrooms and powered by safe and responsible generative AI tailored to support and not replace student thinking. You'll hear what teachers saw, what students created, and how it changed the classroom, not just in terms of engagement, but also learning, collaboration, and confidence. So here's what we'll cover today. We'll begin by grounding ourselves in the real challenges K-12 teachers are facing right now, and then we'll briefly walk through the methodology of the research and then dig into the heart of it. What are the findings? I'll share not just stats, but stories of real classrooms. Along the way, you'll hear voices from the classroom, teachers who generously shared their experiences, what worked, what surprised them, and what changed. And finally, we'll wrap up with actionable insights you can bring back to your school or classroom, whether you're already using Adobe Express for Education or just curious about how creativity and AI might show up for you in your classroom or school. There's something here for you. So let's be honest, K-12 teachers are facing some of the hardest questions in education today. How do we re-engage students who've tuned out or fallen behind? How do we teach critical, durable skills like creativity, communication, collaboration, while still meeting standards and cram curricula? And how do we bring AI into the classroom in a way that supports student thinking instead of replacing it? These are not theoretical questions. They're the real daily tension teachers are navigating. And they were the exact questions we brought to this study. What makes this research different is that we weren't just asking whether a tool works, we were asking whether a tool can help solve some of those core challenges. So the study asked a simple but powerful question. What happens when teachers use Adobe Express for Education in real classrooms for real content to solve real problems? In spring 2025, Adobe partnered with Lean Lab Education, an independent research organization that specializes in co-designing studies with teachers. And in early 2025, we asked a researcher partner, Advanis, to conduct national research in the US with thousands of teachers to see how they are using creativity and AI in the classroom. For this study, we asked Lean Lab to dive much deeper and focus on some actual case studies and on-the-ground implementations. So they recruited 10 teachers from across the US. They taught years 5 through 10, covering all 4 core subjects. The group represented a mix of public, private, urban, and suburban schools. So the results speak to a wide range of contexts. Each teacher implemented 2 to 3 Adobe Express guided activities in their classroom over a 3-week period. These are pre-built projects with a theme, a video tutorial, clear steps, and editable templates, all designed to help students creatively demonstrate what they know. Some activities included generative AI features such as text-to-image tools. Data was gathered through pre and post surveys, reflection logs, and after each activity and one-on-one interviews with half of the teachers. So we heard both the what and the why, the outcomes and the stories behind them. We didn't want to just hear whether students liked it or shallow metrics like net promoter scores. We wanted to see how this kind of learning experience could change how students learned, collaborated, and communicated in new ways. Every good study starts with right questions, and in this case, we focused on 4 core areas that are top of mind for educators today. First, does Adobe Express increase student engagement compared to other methods? We all know engagement is the gateway. If students are not engaged, it's hard to get to anything else. Second, does it improve collaboration and communication skills? These are some of the most in-demand, durable skills in today's workforce, but they're also hard to build in a typical classroom. Does Adobe Express create more opportunities for students to work together, share ideas, and talk about their thinking? And third, does it spark more creative thinking and problem solving? And finally, does it lead to better learning outcomes overall? We're talking about depth of understanding, not just completion. Are students actually learning more through Adobe Express? Are they connecting to the material in a way that sticks? So let's start with what we heard most consistently, a dramatic boost in student engagement. The headline here is that 9 out of 10 teachers said students were more engaged using Adobe Express than with traditional assignments. On the slide, you'll see the breakdown. 40% of teachers strongly agreed and 50% agreed, so near unanimous. That story I told at the beginning of this presentation about that student who is so excited to share their work with their friend captures this really well. Because think about it, that's not just engagement, that is ownership. That's a student feeling pride in something they made and wanting to share it. So why did this happen? The format of Adobe Express guided activities, visual, creative, student-centered, gives students more ways to access the material. It's not just doing a task, it's telling a story, representing an idea, creating something they are proud of. And with the built-in templates and supports, students don't get overwhelmed. So let's bring this research to life with a real classroom example. Beatrice is a teacher in a small independent primary school in the Midwest. Her school is intentionally different, no standardized testing, project-based curriculum, and a deep focus on equity, imagination, and creativity. So with all of that already in the curriculum, you might expect she wouldn't need a tool like this, but she found something surprising. Beatrice used the Create a Silent Film guided activity, and it fit beautifully with what her students were already doing, writing music for silent films in another class. But Adobe Express helped them develop the visual side of the project, layering in storyboards, title cards, and AI-generated visuals. It turned into a full interdisciplinary experience. What stood out to Beatrice wasn't just the creative output, it was the way every student could contribute, even those who didn't typically lead. The generative AI tools gave them a starting point, and because everyone was using something new, it lowered the social pressure and made room for unexpected voices to emerge. Her students also asked thoughtful questions about AI and data privacy. Is the tool safe to use? Where does it get the images from? And Beatrice was able to say, yes, Adobe Express for Education met her standards for classroom safety and responsible AI. That assurance allowed her to confidently introduce AI in a way that aligned with her school's values. Even in a school where creativity is already front and center, Adobe Express provided new entry points, new interdisciplinary connections, and safe, student-friendly access to generative AI. Let's talk about creativity. Before the study, only 50% of teachers agreed that their students had consistent opportunities to express themselves creatively throughout the year. That's the chart on the bottom left. So if we want more creativity, something has to shift. 80% of teachers said the generative AI tools in Adobe Express were more effective than traditional tools for helping their students express their ideas creatively. And most telling of all, in the chart on the bottom right, which reflects immediate feedback after each activity, 93% of the time, teachers said the activity gave students meaningful creative opportunities, which is nearly universal. So why does this matter? Because creative expression is not just about making things pretty, it's about how students show what they know. It's about voice, it's about thinking differently, finding personal connections, and being motivated to take risks, even when the content is hard. As one teacher in the study shared, the biggest challenge is finding balance, making sure students get the hard skills while still building the soft ones. And Adobe Express helped her students do both. Gwen teaches lower secondary STEM in a public suburban school on the West Coast. She is tech savvy, but like many teachers, she hadn't used generative AI in the classroom before this study. And when it came to creativity, her school had limited tools and resources for that. But when Gwen introduced Adobe Express, and specifically the Imagine a Future You guided activity, something changed. This was an annual project she'd done before. Students would create a visual about their future aspirations, what they wanted to be, where they saw themselves in 10 years. In previous years, students pulled stock photos from Google, firefighters, doctors, game developers, and so on. But this time with the Adobe Express and generative AI, they created custom, personalized, much more authentic images of who they imagined their future selves to be in those roles. A girl who wanted to be a civil engineer generated an image of herself in a hard hat, reviewing blueprints. A student interested in law enforcement created an avatar that looked like them in uniform. This wasn't just cut and paste anymore, it was student-driven self-representation. Gwen shared that when students could actually visualize themselves in those roles easily and safely with Adobe Express for Education, and when the image looked like them, they cared more. They felt more ownership. The learning became personal. Gwen also noticed students gathering around each other's screens, offering feedback on prompts. Try using a different word there and more detail about what they're wearing. That looks like a random adult. How can you make it look like you more? These weren't just tech tips, they were conversations about identity, clarity, and creative intent. In guided activities like this, Adobe Express allowed Gwen to transform a familiar assignment into something deeper and help students imagine their futures more vividly and confidently. Related to what Gwen saw in her classroom, another big takeaway from the study was that 9 out of 10 teachers said Adobe Express guided activities were more effective than traditional assignments at helping students develop real-world skills, especially in areas like expressing ideas and engaging in real peer dialogue and collaborative feedback. You can see that reflected in the chart on this slide. Teachers overwhelmingly said that Adobe Express helps students prepare for future academic or career paths, enhance their real-world readiness, and supported life skill development better than other digital tools. One teacher described how students would test and refine their AI-generated prompts together. They didn't just ask for the right answer, they were saying things like, read your prompt aloud. Would someone else picture what you meant? Try adding more sensory detail. That's too vague. These are the kinds of conversations we want students to have. They're not just completing a task, they're articulating intention, thinking about audience, and practicing those much higher order and real-world communication skills. So why is this important? Because communication is one of the top skills employers are looking for across industries, across roles. If we want students to be successful beyond school, we need to help them practice clear, intentional, and creative expression. Educators in this study shared that Adobe Express didn't just change the output, it changed the process, giving students a reason to talk about their work, to listen to their peers, and to revise with purpose. Next, let's meet Danielle, a secondary English teacher in the Midwest. She teaches years 9 and 12, and she's someone who really believes in the power of student voice. In fact, she wrote her doctoral dissertation on creativity and divergent thinking. But like many teachers, Danielle faces a common barrier in her classroom, students' belief that they're not creative. Some students think creativity is only for artists, for kids who draw or paint or write poetry. And when they don't see themselves in that definition, they shut down or check out. But she reported that with Adobe Express, that changed the mindset with her students. She said the generative AI features, especially when paired with clear templates and support in guided activities, helps level the playing field. Everyone could create something expressive and meaningful, whether they considered themselves artistic or not. She shared, this is a different kind of creativity. It's new for most of them, so the playing field is level. She saw students who had never taken creative risks suddenly come alive in their work, experimenting with visuals, sharing ideas, and taking pride in their outcomes. One student she said that who really stood out, Danielle had an English language learner in her class, a student who struggled with written assignments. But during the Adobe Express guided activity, she saw him become a leader for the very first time. He understood the tool quickly and began helping his classmates. He gave feedback, asked thoughtful questions, and encouraged others. That shift in confidence was so striking, Danielle decided to showcase her students' work. And she didn't just post it in the hallway, she brought it to the school board. And then she took it a step further. She brought a group of students to the state capitol where they presented their Adobe Express for Education projects and created poster presentations on the benefits of integrating generative AI in the classroom. When students feel confident in their creative voice and when they're given the tools to express it, they rise. Danielle's story is a perfect example of what happens when technology isn't just used for consumption, but for expression, leadership, and even civic engagement. One of the most encouraging findings in the study was that 8 out of 10 teachers said Adobe Express helps students understand key concepts better than traditional methods. That's a big deal, especially because many teachers started the study unsure about whether generative AI could support deeper learning. Teachers saw students making more connections, reflecting more personally, and putting greater effort into their work. For students who typically struggle with writing or tests, creative projects offered a more accessible and motivating way to show what they know. This is a quote from Danielle, the teacher whose case study we just showed, who took her students to the state capitol. I was impressed by the quality of work that my students put out. I guess maybe I didn't necessarily know that when properly motivated, they would put more effort into things. Alongside better understanding, teachers said Adobe Express helps students explore content more deeply, not just meeting standards, but expanding on them. 9 out of 10 teachers said the guided activities complemented curriculum goals and enhanced learning. Because the activities are flexible and easy to implement, they allowed for more student choice and deeper inquiry without extra burden on the teacher. It wasn't about replacing existing content, it was about giving students more meaningful ways to engage with it. Next, let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah teaches English for years 9 and 12 at a large urban public school. Like many teachers in high-pressure environments, she's tasked with hitting a long list of standards, and creativity, as she puts it, often gets squeezed out. But in this study, Sarah tried something different. She used Adobe Express for an infographic assignment, replacing her usual tool set with one of the guided activities. And what she found surprised her. Students picked it up very quickly, the templates saved class time, and most notably, students were far more eager to collaborate than usual. She gave students the option to work independently or in pairs, and 90% chose to collaborate, which for many classrooms is usually the opposite. By high school, many just want to do their own thing. So even in highly constrained, curriculum-tight environments, creativity is still possible, and Adobe Express helps Sarah reclaim some of that space without sacrificing standards. Teachers in the study saw Adobe Express doing more than just supporting classroom learning. They saw it helping students build real-world skills. 9 out of 10 teachers said it contributed to deeper learning, creative confidence, and future readiness. The slide shows just how broadly AI literacy was perceived to help, from deeper learning to increased engagement, higher creative confidence, and career and college readiness, and even civic awareness. Educators really saw the full spectrum of potential and how much more they could do in their classroom to grow their students. For our last spotlight, let me share a bit about Amanda. Amanda is a veteran secondary teacher, 29 years in the classroom, working in a large urban public district. She had used Adobe Express before the study, but the guided activities gave her a way to go deeper and do more. One of her projects asked students to design memes, not just for humor, but as a way to make arguments, explore cultural references, and connect historical events to the present. The activity sparked creative pride and sharp thinking. Amanda told us about a student who made a "How It Started, How It's Going" meme with 1920s women's suffrage on one side and Kamala Harris on the other. A powerful visual timeline that connected past and present in one glance. But something else stood out that we've seen in the other classrooms we've spotlighted. Students were taking initiative. They were giving each other feedback, real feedback, not just "that's cool." They'd ask, "Does this make sense? Is it funny? Does it hit the mark?" So she also changed how the work was shared. Amanda got a color printer funded by her school board so she could print student work and hang it in the hallways. She said students who had never taken pride in schoolwork were suddenly stopping to show off their posters. Teachers walking by would ask what she was using, and many started exploring Adobe Express themselves. Adobe Express helped Amanda's students see their work as something worth displaying, worth discussing, and worth remembering. That kind of creative confidence doesn't just change one project, it changes how students see themselves as learners and future creators. Lean Lab learned a lot in the study, so it's hard to summarize just 3 takeaways, but these were the most powerful and consistent. First, use Adobe Express to give students new creative ways to show what they know. The guided activities support standards, but also open the door for deeper learning and student voice. Second, generative AI lowers the barrier to creativity. Even students who don't see themselves as artistic can create impressive, meaningful work that boosts confidence and motivation. And third, share student work. When their creations are seen on the wall in a slideshow or in a boardroom, students feel proud, and that pride drives engagement. If you are interested in trying Adobe Express for Education, everything we've shown you today is free. It's built for classrooms, and it's easy to start using for K12. You can find guided activities, templates, and resources at adobe.com/education/express. But I hope the bigger takeaway isn't just about the technology, it's about a shift in how we think about what's possible for teaching and learning today. This study showed that when students are given space to create, to express, and to see themselves in their work, They don't just do better, they feel better. They become more confident, more engaged, and more future ready. So here's the question I'll leave you with. What could your classroom or your school look like if every student believed that their ideas were worth expressing? And what might happen if they had the resources to do that? At the heart of that question is a challenge and an opportunity for all of us in education. And Tim, that's all I have.
Therese, that was just wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Love the stories, love the case studies, so practical. Even though they were a US context, we could relate to just about everything that you shared. Now, Therese, we do have a couple of minutes, and what I thought we might do is I'm going to jump into Adobe Express now, because you talked about those curated activity. You talked about those guided activities several times in the study.
Yes.
And I know many of our teachers here in Australia have already explored them, but maybe not everyone has. So I'm just going to share my screen and you can help us out here, Therese. I'm just jumping into Adobe Express for Education now. And for those of you who are new to the guided activities, in the K12 version, which is what I'm in now, if you just scroll down a little bit, oh, we've got a new thing. So it says try fun guided activities. That's where we go now, isn't it, Therese?
Yep.
So I think that's a new title. I think it was called Guided Activities before. Things do change with Adobe Express on a regular basis. So I'm going to click into there. And what we've got, I've got a brand new one. Every couple of weeks or every month, I suppose, we're getting a new one. We've got a fantastic team in the US who are working on these guided activities regularly. Before we jump into the new, because I've never seen the new one myself, it's brand new. Everyone's loving the quilt, Create Your Quilt, but let's just have a quick look at one of my favorites. I'm going to scroll down. This is my favorite, record a video reflection. But just to give you an example of how they work, when you click on the guided activity, what you do is you go hunting for the play button, because you don't need to know anything about Adobe Express. The guide in there, the teacher that's been part of this, guides you through it. And what I recommend is you don't just click the play button, you go and pop it out. There's a little pop out feature. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to pop out this video. So part of the screen has the recording and part of the screen has the actual project itself. And then when you click play, now I'm not sure if I've shared audio here, but if I hit play, what's happening now? Are you hearing that, Therese?
Use your device's front-facing camera to record a reflection video. Then customize the background using image effects to make your thinking visible. Let's get started. Step 1. To start creating your video reflection, click the Add button in the Media tab. Select Videos, then choose Record Yourself. When you are ready, start your recording using the reflection questions in the pop-up. Don't worry if you make a mistake. You can listen back and re-record as many times as you need. Step 2. Next, select your video and adjust the size so it fits inside the TV screen. Click and drag the bars to crop the image as needed. Adjust the corners to round so they fit nicely.
Get the idea? It's literally a step-by-step guide. And Therese, what's been the most popular of the guided activities that you're aware of?
There's one that's a bobblehead where you can like create your own bobblehead of yourself. There's also like create your own superhero. Those are really popular. This one that you're just over, the illustrated creative self-portrait, that's a great one for back to school time to kind of introduce your class to one another. There's some really great ones. And what I love about these is they really bust down the barriers of intimidation factor. Like the study showed, if there are kids that students that think that they're not creative, this really gives them a platform to just walk right through it, and educators too. But for the kids that are super creative and identify that way, it's still a really wonderful format.
Yeah, it's terrific. Therese, thank you for sharing this. We're going to stop the recording, but I'd like you to hang on because we've got a couple of people who want to ask you some questions.
Sure.
But we'll do those offline. And everyone, can you help me give her a round of applause? I'm going to look for my sound effects here, and because I'm sharing my screen still, I am, so we can give a round of applause for Therese. Here we go. Round of applause is happening.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your time all the way from Santa Barbara in California. And folks watching the recording, Thanks for joining us, and I hope you got a lot out of it. Those of you who are watching us live, we are about 15 minutes away now from our next set of workshops, so make sure you've registered and you're ready to go into them, but this gives you a chance to have a bit of a break. But I'm going to stop the recording now, and Therese, we've got a few questions for you. So let's just stop the recording. I'll stop sharing and find my stop recording button. Thanks, folks.